Hello everybody and welcome to the monthly stats video for June. Now I'm sure you all noticed as well, but June was a pretty good month, wasn't it? I mean, just had weeks of endless sunshine and very little cloud. So it should be bumper results for this month. So let's get into the figures and see just how well we did. So we generated a total of 1.14 megawatt hours in June, which is an improvement on May, where we were just under the megawatt hour, but really nice to punch through the megawatt hour for a month. That's truly exceptional. So yeah, as I thought, fantastic month. So yeah, that was about 166 kilowatt hours more than we generated in May. We imported 152 kilowatt hours and we exported 98 kilowatt hours. So in total for the month of June we used 1,194 kilowatt hours of electricity. So yeah, over the megawatt hour used as well. Which sounds like an awful lot, doesn't it, really, for a household to use. But when you consider that that's also running the cars, we don't buy any petrol, so really it does make a bit more sense. So if we had no solar and no battery storage system, and we weren't taking advantage of the Octopus Go tariff, where you get cheap electricity for 4 hours at night time, then that 1,194 kilowatt hours at a standard Octopus electricity tariff rate would have cost us £455.48. So having the solar has saved us £422.60, and that is because that amount of electricity that would have cost us that amount of money we generated ourselves, so we didn't actually have to pay for it. So that's how much we saved by having solar. And then by having the batteries and being on the Octopus Go tariff, so when we did have to use electricity from the grid, we pretty much just used it during that 4-hour cheap rate period at night, and that was mostly to charge the cars, but also occasionally to heat some hot water. So that saved us £28.22, which is basically the difference between what we would have had to pay had we used that electricity during the normal daytime rate. And our FIT payments, stroke export payments for the month of June has earned us £158.51. So the total cost for our 1.2 megawatt hours of electricity that we used was £42.80. That is the actual amount of money that Octopus has charged me for the month of June. So £42.80 was my bill. £12.94 of that is the standing charge, which you can't do anything about, which means the average price we paid for a kilowatt hour of electricity in June was just 2.5 pence. Now that is slightly more than in May, despite the fact that we've generated more electricity in June. And there's a reason for that, and you'll see that in the imports shortly. So, as I said, my electricity bill from Octopus was £42.79. And obviously the FIT feed-in payment that I also mentioned, we made £158.51 for June. So that means the total cost of our energy for the month of June was nothing, and in fact we made £115 profit. And don't forget that also includes running the cars, so we're not paying for any petrol either. So despite the fact that we're not having to pay for petrol, we're having to use a lot of electricity to run the cars, we still had zero energy cost and made £115 profit. So it really is, if you've got an EV, it really is a no-brainer to get yourself solar on the roof of your house, because it's just free fuel. I mean, it's as simple as that, and it will help pay for the installation costs even quicker. So you know, you can probably get it to pay for itself inside of 5-6 years max. So now let's look at the pie charts for June, and you can see that we managed to use just over the megawatt hour of all the power that we had, and we exported nearly 100 kilowatt hours. But that's pretty good going, because that is only 8% of the energy that we generated we exported, whereas in May it was nearer 10%. So we've done better in June. We've managed to keep more of our own power. Now here is the pie chart that shows where the generated electricity came from, broken down by my inverters, and you can see everything is contributed nicely at this time of year. The main thing of note is that the wall-mounted solar panels, which is the yellow segment there, is now only about 10% of the total, whereas in May it was about 12.5%. So those wall-mounted panels are producing less and less now, because in June we hit the longest day, the sun's at its highest, so the panels are at a very, very steep angle from the sun, so they don't generate so much anyway, but also because of where they are on the wall, when the sun's really at its highest at this time of year, the shadow from the eaves casts just a small shadow across the top of all the panels, and that's just enough to knock all the power generation off of them until such time as the sun gets a little bit lower, that shadow just moves off the top, and then suddenly they ramp up a lot more. And you'll see that in the graph in a minute for the best day. But really I should have put optimizers on all of my panels. I have got it on some of them, but there's a few that I didn't put it on, and that's really costing me at this time of year. But I get so much from the other panels, really. I don't really need that much in the summer months. The vertical panels were mostly to help me out in the winter months when the sun is much lower and I need a lot more energy coming in because the days are so shorter. So I'm not too bothered by the fact that you know, I'm missing out potentially on a bit of extra energy that I could be getting. It's not really worth the hassle now of trying to get those panels off just to put optimizers on the back and get them back on the wall again, because it's really a headache to try and do that. So it'll just have to stay as it is. Now let's look at the pie chart that shows the energy mix, and you can see that most of our energy is free because we generated it ourselves, so over a megawatt hour of what we used was free. 92 kilowatt hours worth was from the cheap night rate from Octopus Go, and just a small portion, 4% or 48 kilowatt hours, was at the expensive rate. And compared to May, you can see that we've used as a percentage less expensive energy in June than we did in May, and also we've used more of the cheap energy. Our best day was on the 4th of June, and on that day we topped the 50 kilowatt hour mark. That's always a good one to get past. It's a bit like doing the megawatt hour in the month. If I can do a 50 kilowatt hour in a day, that really is pushing the maximum. So yeah, on the 4th, really good. Here's the graph for the generation for the 4th. And as I was saying earlier about the wall-mounted solar, you can see just on the yellow line here that you get to about 12 o'clock, just before you suddenly see it start ramping up. From about just past 12 o'clock, it suddenly ramps up to sort of its full power. But up until that point, it's very subdued, all the way from about 9 o'clock right the way through until almost 12 o'clock. It's sort of just generating about 300 watts, and that's because of this shadow that the eaves cast on the top of the panels. And once the sun just goes past the sort of zenith and starts to go slightly lower again, that shadow slowly moves off the top of the panels, and suddenly you get a bit more generation. So that's a visible representation there of that shading. And these few little blobs that you can see, the few little dips, they're not real. It was a perfectly blue sky day that day. Those are just caused by my software losing contact with the inverter temporarily, so it thinks the power coming from that inverter is 0, but actually it isn't. It's just it's lost contact with it, so you get these little dips. That's a beautiful bell-shaped graph for the day. Our worst day was the 28th of June, and on that day we generated 15.7 kilowatt hours, and here's the graph for that day. And I mean, yeah, it's still a pretty good graph even for a worst day. 15 kilowatt hours is still a good amount of generation, more than enough to run the house and have some spare. But yeah, it was pretty dim in the morning, and then it seemed to brighten up a bit around 2 o'clock for a little while, and then it kind of went sort of dimmer again. And I think on that day, when we look at the imports, you'll see that it wasn't really enough that day to run the cars and heat the hot water as well, so we had to actually import a bit of energy during the night to get some energy in the car for the next day. So we'll look at the imports next, and you'll see briefly on the 2nd of June there was a bit of a boo-boo where I forgot to put the car on to charge during the night, and then we realised we didn't have enough charge to do what we wanted to do the following day, and so at about 6-7 in the morning I realised, and I had to charge from the mains at peak rate basically to get enough charge in it to use it for what we wanted that day. And that I think is what contributed to making our average unit price for the month go up to sort of 2.5 pence a kilowatt hour, slightly up from May's 2.46 I think it was, or something. So other than that one spike there on the 2nd, the rest of the month was completely effectively off grid until we get to the last 3 days of the month, the 28th, the 29th and the 30th, and that's when we had to we had the sort of dim days right at the end of the month, and that's when we had to import some power to charge the cars. To summarise June then, we had 26 effective off-grid days, and the longest streak of consecutive off-grid days in June was 25. So that means in the year to date so far we've had 67 off-grid days, and the longest consecutive period of off-grid streak, was 25 days, and that was from June. So that's it for the month. How did you get on for June? I'm sure you all found it was a record-breaking month as well, so yeah, do let me know how you got on in the comments. Here's my Octopus Energy link if anyone's considering joining Octopus. after seeing my video and seeing how much you can save by using Octopus Go, particularly if you've got an EV to charge your car at night, then yeah, please do use my referral link, and we'll both get a bit of a reward for you doing that. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on the next video.